Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network, and welcome to episode 171 of the Conscious Resistance Live, brought to you by Civil. And today is my birthday, December 1st. I am 41 years old as of today, and I'm spending it with you, recording a podcast, bringing you guys important news. And before we get into that important news, I just want to say thanks to everybody out there who has already sent me birthday wishes. Those of you who remember my birthday, I appreciate that. And, I'm, I guess, a little bit in a reflective mood. I was kind of outside last night walking my dog and just thinking about life and thinking about how grateful I am, how excited I am for life in general, and for all that I've been through, all the struggles, all the circles, all the ups and downs and everything from addiction to depression to prison, mental health struggles, to activism, to travel, to organizing events, to publishing and writing books and doing interviews and doing speaking tours and all sorts of amazing opportunities that I've been given by the Creator. And I've kind of had this thing going on for years where I feel like I have this interesting juxtaposition of having a really awesome individual kind of personal inner world and inner life, and then watching the outside, bigger picture world go a little crazy. And it's an interesting place to be, but I'm here for it. My personal world is getting better. I'm getting closer to building on the land here in 2026. I'm in an amazing relationship with a person I love and adore. I have family that I'm getting closer to every day, and 6 nieces and nephews that I care about and love. And I'm about to release my memoir of my story of drug addiction and prison and all that stuff in just a couple of weeks. I'm about to release the final episode of my 17-part documentary series that I've been working on for 5 years, the final episode of The Pyramid of Power. And I'm going to be releasing a book version of The Pyramid of Power. I could go on. There's just so many blessings, and I count them every day, and I'm so grateful. And of course, I'm grateful to be able to do this, to record a podcast, and to work with people like Civil who support my work. And those of you who donate monthly or once every now and then on Substack or Buy Me a Coffee, or those who send crypto donations, I'm blessed for all of it. I'm grateful to do what I love. And like I said, as I watch the external world get a little crazier, I just trust and I know that this is where I'm supposed to be. Everything I went through in the past is what I was supposed to go through. And where I am now as a 41-year-old man with the lessons I've learned and the wisdom I have, it's exactly where I'm supposed to be. So there's nowhere else I'd rather be. And I'm very, very grateful, to all of you who are tuned in and all of you who share my work. I want to mention this. If you'd like to give me a birthday gift, if you'd like to give me some sort of present, one thing you can do is go to theconsciousresistance.com, which is, of course, my website for the last 13 years where we've been broadcasting all of my content. So you can go to theconsciousresistance.com. You can check on our navigation here and find shop. You'll see books and shirts. Go there, check out some of my books, order a book for yourself, but also, I get a little bit of that money. That would be a gift. Or order a t-shirt. I get a little bit of that money, and then you get an awesome shirt to wear. And if you don't want to spend any money, just go to theconsciousresistance.com and search around this website. Not only just the recent stuff I've been putting out in the last couple of weeks or months, but look out the entire categories. We really organized this website because I've covered so much content in so many different areas over the years. And this isn't even the complete list. I've got a bunch more categories I need to add that are just not here. But if you just search a term or a word or a phrase of something you're interested in or a topic you're interested in, you probably are going to find something I've said on that subject. And you can also go to just check out my documentaries, or you can, as I said, search by category, check out the books, check out my presentations, which I think tend to be my better work. Go there, find something interesting or find a couple things interesting, and share it on your social media channels. Share it in your email list. Share it in your group chats, wherever you're at. Share it with somebody. That would be a birthday present to me as well. If you just share my content, let people know who I am, what I'm up to, and encourage them to check it out. So thank you guys for all the support you already offer. And as I mentioned, we got a big show today. We're going to be covering important stories. And the first story right off the bat, we're going to talk about a satanic sex ring in Sydney, which was just 4 men were just arrested. And those are not my terms. That's what the police are calling it. So we'll talk all about that, and also do a little bit of history on some of my work in the past on so-called satanic sex rings and how some people continue to think this is all satanic panic, despite the evidence piling up. We're going to talk about technocrats further enriching themselves under Trump. Surprise, surprise, but more evidence coming out just showing how certain people, not only are they criminals trying to technologically enslave you in this technocratic digital prison, but they're getting rich while they're doing it. Then there's questions now about whether or not Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, secretary of war, if you want, that he may be guilty of war crimes, according to some people, because of these Venezuelan boat strikes and a new report that has just come out accusing him of killing survivors. And then the last two stories, Republicans bending the knee under Trump. Just a quick example from my home state of Texas to remind you guys that Republicans are no different than Democrats, despite these, there's some areas where there's some differences, but in terms of principles, neither of them have principles. They all lack principles, and that's where it really matters. So we're going to talk about that. And then finally, just a quick touch on a story, maybe some kind of like MK Ultra 2.0 or 2025 about mind-altering weapons and drugs that two researchers are now releasing a book all about, and I'm going to talk about that briefly. And then, of course, we're going to end with a brand new music video tonight. We're going to be hearing from Soul Disciple, who is going to be performing at the People's Reset. So just real quick mention of the People's Reset, guys. This is, of course, the event that I organize every January in Morelia, Mexico, where I live right now, and where I'm building the community, and hundreds of people. We're expecting 400 to 500 people show up every year. This is a family-friendly, bilingual, multi-generational event, speakers in Spanish, speakers in English, people from Canada, the US, Mexico, of course, the UK, Australia, New Zealand. I mean, people are coming from all over the world, and it's such an amazing time. I know many of you out there are looking for community. And in fact, maybe some of you are craving community, desperate for community. Others of you, maybe you just watch conspiracy podcasts because it's just something fun you do. But for those of you who really get this as a struggle for the human spirit and for human liberty and for the future of humanity, and who understand how big this battle is and want to be actively involved and start doing things in your life to make sure that humanity can stay free, this is the event for you. Those of you who desperately, as I said, crave connection and community and are looking for that, this is the event for you. If you are looking for like-minded people who are not focused on false, dead-end political solutions or apathy and blackpilling or, insurrection, violence or whatever, and you're looking for people who are really focused on real solutions like exit and build, and you want to learn about permaculture, you want to learn about health solutions, mental health, physical health, spiritual health, you want to learn about building parallel systems and using technology in a private way that's going to empower your health and your mind and your spirit, and about people who are already homesteading and growing food and living on the land, this is the event for you. There's 5 days of talks, 35 presentations. There's going to be 50 hands-on workshops. There's going to be 2 different concerts featuring dozens of artists, including myself, conscious artists. There's going to be yoga. There's going to be deep discussion. There's going to be Web3. There's going to be decentralized tech. It's going to be all kinds of stuff. So even if you're not interested in one piece of it, there's probably something else you are interested in. But most importantly, if you're ready to get actively involved and fight for the future of humanity and connect on a real human level, thepeoplesreset.org, guys, that's the website. That's my pitch. Go to the website. Tickets are currently $222, and they are available at that price till December 15th. They go up on December 15th all the way to the event on January 28th and February 1st. So you still got basically 2 months to prepare for this. Still plenty of time. And because I desperately want my people, my conscious resistance audience and family out there to come in person, I am offering a exclusive 15% discount on tickets to the People's Reset for those in my conscious resistance audience. So whether you're listening on podcasting platform, or you're watching on video platforms, or you're watching from my website, whatever, I'm putting this out there to my email list, to all my channels. If you want to come to the People's Reset, use the code Conscious Resistors, all one word, Conscious Resistors, and you get a 15% coupon from the People's Reset tickets. That's the best discount that we're going to be giving at all until the event. So you have that for 15 more days. I would love to have a conscious resistance meetup at the People's Reset. I would love to get a group of us who say, oh, you follow Derrick on the Conscious Resistance, you're on the email list, you're on the YouTube channel. Oh, I've seen you. I've been debating with you and talking with you on Telegram. Let's get together. Let's connect. Doesn't have to be anything crazy, but let's just hang out. There's lots of fun outdoor and indoor activities at the People's Reset, and it's always a great time to connect on that level. So if you're coming, email me. Tell me about it. Derrick@theconsciousresistance.com. Let me know you're coming. Let's start planning a conscious resistance meetup at the People's Reset 2026. All right. And of course, one more note before we dive into these shows. Just want to let you guys know again that my work is brought to you by Civil at civil.com, civl.com. And we are continuing the 10-week opt-out challenge. We're actually in the final weeks here coming up. I'm going to be doing my final week next Wednesday. John Bush this Wednesday is doing grassroots commerce. This has been a 10-week challenge that will forever live on Civil. So even if you sign up now, you get access to all the past weeks you've been missing, and you can get caught up in your own free time. But next week, I'm going to be doing the Exit and Build finale, talking all about land and travel. This week, John's doing applied counter-economics. And then after I wrap it up, John still has 2 more weeks, anti-fragile community building, building freedom together, and then the future, a legacy of liberty, the future we build, living free, leaving a legacy. So, I mean, there's so much content here. If you're actually serious about opting out of technocracy and you want to learn about it in the areas of health, finances, education, technology, all sorts of things, this is where you want to find out more about it, guys. John Bush and I are given everything we got to make this the best presentation possible. And I think you would enjoy it. So go to civl.com/TCR, civil.com/TCR, get signed up for just $5 a month or $50 a year. And you can get a 20% discount code with the code TCR20, 20% off an annual subscription. All right. Now, many people still deny that satanic cults, satanic sex rings exist. Lots of people think that they're a myth, or they're just a legacy of the 1980s, 1970s, all the way to the 1990s satanic panic. And this is, we are told, an era of time where people were very conservative. They were also very timid. They were more Christian and religious. And so there was this fear of satanic cults everywhere. And there was also the past, people might have heard the term stranger danger. People were, in general, more afraid, we're told. Even though at the same time, we're told that back in the day, people felt so safe that they never locked their doors. But let's ignore that. What we're often told is back in these times when people were so scared of everything, they thought any symbol that looked different was a satanic symbol, or that anytime a group of people hung out together, if they were listening to heavy metal music or wearing black or, interested in true crime, what has now become true crime, they might be satanic or evil. And rest assured, I definitely think there are some folks who are religious and Christian who are that way, who see, signs of evil everywhere. And I think sometimes get sucked into a whole rabbit hole that isn't healthy. And yet at the same time, that is complete bullshit, that the satanic panic was just imagined fears and that there was never any evidence of actual satanic cults, satanic rings, or even just networks of pedophiles. And that is not to say that every single network of pedophiles is satanic or occult or dark occult, as some would say. But to deny that such things exist is absolutely a denial of reality. And this next story, which is just being reported today, December 1st, which began last Thursday with arrest in Australia, is just another example of these reported cults. Australia bust Sydney satanic child sex abuse ring. Australian police said they charged 4 men based out of Sydney's suburbs for their alleged involvement in distributing images of child sexual abuse involving satanic themes to a wider international group. On Monday, Australian police said detectives have charged 4 men operating out of the suburbs of Sydney for their alleged involvement in an international criminal gang sharing images of child sexual abuse involving symbols linked to Satanism on the internet. Now, of course, that's where things can get kind of tricky, right? Because they say symbols. What does it mean for a symbol to be satanic? I mean, I would imagine, a pentagram, upside down pentagram, or devil horns, something, right? But until this goes to court and we actually see whatever evidence they're going to present, I would say, it's still we got to be hesitant. Again, not to say these things don't happen, but I want to see what they actually consider satanic symbols. Because as I mentioned, and maybe I have a bias here, but I grew up listening to metal and punk, and I listened to a lot of bands that, sort of toy with this idea of being evil or satanic. And I also listened to some death metal bands that were straight up satanic, and they use upside down crosses and pentagram. It's clear that they're satanic. But then there's other bands who kind of have their own symbolism and things and dark imagery, and people look at it like, oh, that's satanic, even if that particular symbol has no connection to anything that has ever been deemed satanic. So I'm hesitant to just get lost into symbols. Symbols have meaning, but again, I think sometimes people fall down a rabbit hole. Here's another report, same story here. journalist, former swim coach charged in abhorrent alleged satanic pedophile ring. So let's get to the actual police release itself here. This is the latest news on the New South Wales Police Force website. Sex Crime Squad charged 4 men for involvement in an international satanic child sexual abuse material ring. It's a mouthful. Sex Crime Squad detectives have charged 4 men following an investigation into an international satanic child sex abuse material ring under Strikeforce Constantine. Now, again, this is on the official police website, and they are using the term international satanic child sex abuse. That's their phrase, right? I'm not adding anything here, and that's what the media is reporting. Strikeforce Constantine was established by the State Crime Command's Child Exploitation Internet Unit to investigate the online distribution of child sexual abuse involving ritualistic or satanic themes. And remember that term ritualistic, because there's another report that I've been investigating for years in Utah here in the US that also uses that word ritualistic. And so I think there might be more of an increased awareness around the world that there are certain cults or rings that abuse children and do so in a ritualistic and even potentially satanic manner. During the investigation, detectives uncovered a Sydney-based pedophile network actively involved in possessing, distributing, and facilitating this material through a website that was administered internationally. Following extensive inquiries on last Thursday at 7 a.m., they executed 6 warrants in Waterloo, Ultimo, and Malabar. At the Waterloo address, police arrested a 26-year-old man who police will allege played a leading role in the group. He was taken to the local police station and was charged with 7 counts of use carriage services to make available child abuse, use carriage, etc., to access child abuse material, 3 counts of possession of child abuse data use carriage service, 2 counts of person disseminates bestiality material, and person that possesses bestiality material. So obviously something involving animals going on in there as well, making this even more disturbing. The other men were 46, 42, and 39 years old, and they give their charges here and their ages and everything like that. So 4 men arrested so far. Now, it is important to note that they acknowledge that they did not catch these 4 men with any children themselves. So there was not, unfortunately, any kids who were freed by this arrest. It's just them being in possession and distributing this material. They also didn't say that these men had created the material. So that means they were receiving it from somewhere else. And hopefully these are just the first of 4 arrests of many to come, because clearly these men, if they didn't create the material with children themselves, they bought it from somewhere, they downloaded it somewhere off the deep web, they did something, right? And that should lead to, well, who possessed that, who created it, who filmed it, and who was abusing these children, right? I mean, that's the hope here, that more is to come. Now, it was interesting that right here on the New South Wales website, they do list to this on a page called Hightail. They link to this, and there's pictures of one of the men who was arrested. This is the journalist that they said, we're going to say his name in just a second. I have to go back. This is the alleged journalist. He's, I guess you would call him an independent journalist. You know, he was running a Substack. And the interesting thing is he runs a Substack that claims to expose pedophile rings and expose people, you know, who harm children. And they have a short video here that we're going to play in just a moment. This man's name was, okay, let's make sure we say his name. Oh, they don't have it listed here in the on the police website, but I know the other websites do. So let me just go back, because I think that this guy's name needs to be said out loud. I don't think you can get away with this and just go anonymous, even though, as you see here in these pictures, he's so concerned about covering his face with his beanie. Yeah, do you think he gave those children any of that opportunity to, you know, hide their faces before he abused them, or before whoever abused them, and before he shared it? I highly doubt it. So that's this man right here, and his name is Landon Germanato Mills. Landon Germanato Mills. There's a picture of him right there on the side screen, on the main screen. You can see there for those watching. That's the face he's trying to hide. Disgusting man right there, and accused, of course, innocent until proven guilty, but is definitely accused of some horrendous things. Hopefully the truth comes out. If he's innocent, let him go. But it seems like they are pretty confident they've got evidence against this man. And this is his Substack. It's called undergroundmedianetwork.substack.com if you want to go there and check it out for whatever reason. But this interesting thing is the last post that he made Let's just check this out. Vigilante justice or police corruption inside the Lightning Ridge robbery that split Australia from about a month ago. Lightning Ridge, blah, blah. Okay, according to police and court documents, a 36-year-old off-duty New South Wales police officer drove 800 kilometers from the state's south coast to Lightning Ridge, entered the home of a 78-year-old man, tied him up, assaulted him, and stole $100,000 in cash. The man was found with his arm and leg injuries and taken to the hospital in a stable condition. This week, the officer was jailed for 10 years with a non-parole period of 6. They described it as a serious, deliberate betrayal of the badge. It blew up that basically the 78-year-old man was a pedophile. And that's kind of what was exposed, that this 70-year-old man was a pedophile, and the cop abused, came in and abused him, robbed him, did all this stuff. But people were like, okay, well, I guess he deserves it. The man is a convicted child sex offender that the cop once investigated. And so he comes there and beats him up. Anyways, it's just interesting that this is the kind of last story that this dude posts in early November. And again, they promote this whole website, their about page, an independent Australian investigative journalism platform committed to exposing institutional abuse, systemic failures, and the misuse of power. He is founded by this journalist. The platform is survivor-led, trauma-informed, and legally aware, built by and for those impacted by the systems we investigate. So, claiming to be standing for victims while out there abusing children. I mean, I don't know how much more sick, twisted it can get. Now, another story that I've covered over the years that relates to claims of ritual abuse is in Utah, as I mentioned a couple of moments ago. This is a section on my website you can find. So if you want to see everything I've done on this story, on the Utah ritual abuse case, and also on the Mormon Church and Utah in general, because I started this back in, as it says here, May 2022, when the Utah County Sheriff's Office announced an investigation into what they called ritualized child sexual abuse, which is very similar to the Australian case, except for the Australian case explicitly mentions Satanic. So when that story broke in May 2022, I saw it, I realized nobody was touching it, so I decided to dive deep in it, started contacting the police and talking about this situation. And once I did, I had so many people contact me with information, like sources, people who are Mormons in Utah, people who used to be Mormons, used to live in Utah, and had all kinds of information. So this section here on the website, it follows the initial investigation by the sheriff's office, as you can see here in this first video. And there's like 5 parts of this, just that alone. But it also led to more investigations, including one called Justice Delayed, how I was sent information about an official within the Mormon Church who was abusing his own daughters, and the story all about that. This also led me to the story of Kate, who is a survivor of ritualistic abuse by David Hamblin, this man on the right side of the screen, who was accused by the sheriff's office of this ritualistic sex abuse of children. And it led me to interview Cindy Metcalf of the Relentless Hope, which is all about trying to expose ritual abuse in the Mormon Church. And it also led to my recent story, helped me find this Utah ritual abuse whistleblower, and then an interview with Goel, who's one of the best investigators out there investigating Utah ritual abuse and these sorts of things. So there's a whole section on there. And again, that involves accusations, especially if you go back to the original case against David Hamblin in the mid-2000s. And there's like literally documented hundreds of pages from some of the alleged victims, including his own daughters, who explicitly say that when they were being abused by different people, including their own father and people within the Mormon Church, that they were praying to Lucifer, and that there was involved murder and like literally wearing the skin of dead people while they're abusing children, and a lot of stuff that sounds insane. And I'm just reporting what is in these police documents, which I guess you could say are completely fake, and maybe the girls made up. And that's, of course, what Hamblin and others accuse them of. I think that there's something there. I don't think a child, especially when, as young as they were when they first wrote down these accusations, could just dream up such horrible things out of just whole cloth. I definitely think there's something there. Unfortunately, as my report showed from just a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago, David Hamblin, he had the charges dismissed against him, and he was basically let off once again. That's the second time in a row. He was accused of these same things in the mid-2000s and then accused again in 2022. And then charges were dismissed earlier this year against him. So that case has kind of officially come to an end for the moment, and he is out walking free. Now, hopefully that's not what we're going to see with this case in Australia, because we do want some real justice and hope for some real justice. But unfortunately, the reality is of these kinds of cases, a lot of times it does involve powerful people. And the Utah case particularly, people were concerned from the very beginning that that was what was going to happen, that exactly what happened was going to happen, that they were going to, because of David Hamblin's connections and also because this whole thread of former Utah County Attorney David Leavitt and his connections, that these cases were going to be just dismissed and, they were just not going to be listened. And I think that's unfortunate, but it is what happened, and hopefully that doesn't happen in the Australia case because, like I said a few minutes ago, clearly these guys were not working alone. Maybe these four men each other, but if they weren't doing the abuse, then who was doing the abuse? And we need to know that. Now, one other thing I will just mention on this before we move on to our next story is that people like this so-called journalist, Brandy Zadrozny, over at, she's at NBC, senior reporter and misinformation expert. Seeing people like her who constantly write articles and just claim that this sort of stuff is fake news really does drive me crazy. In fact, I'm tempted to email her because her and I have talked, as you can see here from the September 2023 interview. She called me and emailed me and said she wanted to talk with me because she was working on an article about the Satanic Panic, and she wanted to talk to me about my work on the Utah ritual abuse case. And so she had me and her producer get on the phone or on a Zoom, I think it was a video call, and I screen recorded the whole thing and recorded it for everybody to hear and see. And they never ran an article about me because I guess she realized I had I wasn't just an idiot and I could actually speak about these topics. And you can even hear it in the way she responds. At one point, she's like, okay, you're good, Derrick, you're good, because of some of the things I challenged her on. It's people like her, though, who write articles like debunking, she did, Satanic Panic is making a comeback, fueled by QAnon believers and GOP influencers. And you can go through here and just kind of hear the conversation. You can also see this profile of misinformation expert I did and just sort of, it's based on this article I wrote for TLab that's all about just kind of her and like what this says, that people are not willing to listen to these kind of things. And also just one more link that I'll mention before we move on. While I started to investigate these types of things, I was sent different material that hasn't been released before, at least hasn't been released and seen on the internet for decades. And that includes this report by News Channel 4. I think this was in Oklahoma. Let me see. I have it in here. I'm pretty sure it was Oklahoma. Brad Edwards. And he did this series of videos called Are the Children Lying back in, I want to say 1992. Here, I have it somewhere in this article. Let's make sure we get the accurate date. Edwards. Of course, we also got the Franklin scandal that many people know about as well. And of my work on the finders as well. So it was in the 1990s, Oklahoma City, Brad Edwards, working for Oklahoma 4 News. He produced a segment called In Your Corner with a focus on fighting for the public interest. And at some point in the 90s, we don't know when, but he produced a week-long In Your Corner investigation called Are the Children Lying?, reporting on the ongoing claims of satanic abuse taking place around the United States. So this was aired on TV, but it's never been seen on the internet until I published it as part of my investigation. And the video itself is 38 minutes long. The majority of it is Brad Edwards. And then the person who sent this to me, which they originally sent this to me on VHS tapes, and Ryan and I converted it to digital. It also includes another report at the end. But I encourage you to watch this because, again, some people will dismiss this and just say, well, that was the 1990s. That was a satanic panic, Derrick. But back then, people seemed to take it seriously, and this journalist took it seriously, and he seemed to believe there was something there. So I will put that link in the show notes as well, the link to the article and to the video, Are the Children Lying?, Re-examining the Satanic Panic. And then, of course, my conversation, as I mentioned, with Brandy Zadrozny, the senior misinformation expert reporter from NBC, who thought that she could debunk the Satanic Panic and instead decided not to write an article about me because she looked like a fool. All right. Well, we'll keep up with that one and let you guys know what we hear. Now, our next story is going to focus on the Trump administration and the technocrats that just can't seem to I don't know. For me, guys, like I'm not extremely wealthy. I'm definitely not a millionaire. I'm not a multimillionaire. I'm not a billionaire. I mean, I would like to have $1 million. Cool. I'd make the best use of it. I'd do some good things with it. But I feel like there's got to be a point where you get enough money, right? Is there ever a point when you get enough money? Like maybe not. Maybe you get a certain amount of money and then you just become thirsty for more money and it becomes like an endless cycle. Because I wonder, because these guys are billionaires, and I mean, it doesn't mean I guess you should stop making money because you've already got a lot of money, but it just seems like they're so motivated by growing that number and having a huge account. And I understand some people are like, I got to leave a legacy for my children. I'm going to make sure that my family never has to spend a dime after I'm dead, long gone and dead. Okay, I can get that sort of sentiment, but I don't think that's what these people are motivated by. They seem to be simply motivated by greed and by just the accumulation of wealth. And I guess that's my question is there ever enough? Let me know in the comments. But apparently there's never enough for David Sachs and Howard Lutnick and other technocrats in the Trump administration. This is a new article coming from the New York Times about David Sachs, who I've written about quite a bit. This is, of course, a friend and ally of Peter Thiel. He is also been involved in the AI and the crypto industry for years, been involved in Silicon Valley going back to the early days. And he is Trump's AI and crypto czar. And I wrote about this right away, warning you guys that this guy, David Sachs, again, and Peter Thiel have such an extensive relationship going back decades to their Stanford days. And this article is titled, Silicon Valley's Man in the White House is benefiting himself and his friends. David Sachs, the AI and crypto czar, has helped formulate policies that aid his Silicon Valley friends and many of his own tech investments. And that's just the long and the short of it right there. He's in a position, like many politicians, and not to say he's the only one who's done this or the first one, of course not, but it's just another piece of the evidence to show you that the Trump administration is not different than any other before it, Republican or Democrat, and all the people who in MAGA who thought it's going to be something different, it's going to be something unique, it's going to be people-powered, et cetera, whatever, that's not the situation, that's not the case. I'm sorry if you believe that. And instead, it's just more rich people, powerful people, getting more powerful, getting more rich, and empowering themselves to the maximum degree possible. That's what it is. And it is a revolving door between industry, whether that's, in this case, tech industry, or I've done reporting on the big wireless industry, of course, the banking industry, and people go from private, which is so-called private because in this case, big tech's funded by the military industrial intelligence complex. And then they go into government and then they do policies and set policies that are going to be good for the positions, the private positions that they worked in and will work again after they leave the government. And then they go back and do the same thing. And some people have the freaking the balls to do it several times. They'll go into industry, work in industry for a decade, then go back into the government and regulate that same industry and give it all sorts of, perks and things like that. Then they go back into the industry again, and they'll go back one more time for government. And it's so common that it's sad and it's laughable. So it's not anything new. It's just, once again, evidence that they're no different than any of the rest of them. In July, David Sachs, one of Trump's top technology officials, beamed as he strode on stage at a neoclassical auditorium just blocks from the White House. He had convened top government officials and Silicon Valley execs for a forum on the booming business of artificial intelligence. The guest of honor was President Trump, who unveiled an AI action plan that was drafted in part by Mr. Sachs, a longtime venture capitalist. And it says almost everyone in the high-powered audience, which included the chief executives of the chip makers NVIDIA and AMD, as well as Mr. Sachs' tech friends, colleagues, and business partners, was poised to profit from Mr. Trump's directives. Among the winner was Mr. Sachs himself. Now, they do a great job here of just, so we don't have to read the entire article, but I will put it in the show notes, of course, of giving you some highlights of what they're pointing out here. Mr. Sachs has offered astonishing White House access to his tech industry compatriots and pushed to eliminate government obstacles facing AI companies. This has set up giants like NVIDIA to reap an estimate of as much as $200 billion in new sales. Sachs has recommended AI policies that have sometimes run counter to national security recommendations, alarming some of his White House colleagues and raising questions about his priorities. He has positioned himself to personally benefit. He has 708 tech investments, including at least 449 stakes in companies with ties to AI that could be aided directly or indirectly by his policies. His public filings designate 438 of his tech investments as software or hardware companies, even though the firms promote themselves as AI enterprises offering AI services or have AI in their name. So again, he's got like all these investments, hundreds of companies, and they allowed him to have this waiver, which is not, again, the first person he's ever had a waiver, but it's a unique waiver, and which allows him to keep these investments because they say, oh, there's no conflict of interest there, even though AI is literally in the name of these companies. So let's go ahead and jump into this next section where they actually examine some of his stocks in his portfolio in a section called the Sachs portfolio. It says the ethics waiver that Mr. Sachs received said he and Kraft Ventures had sold more than $200 million in crypto positions. Kraft Ventures is a company that he is part owner of, including investments in Bitcoin, and were divesting stakes in AI-related companies, including Meta, Amazon, and xAI. Mr. Sachs had started or completed sales of over 99% of his holdings in companies that could potentially raise a conflict of interest concern, said the White House. Ms. Houston, the White House spokeswoman, said Mr. Sachs was, quote, recused from participating in any matters that could affect his financial interest until he was able to divest of conflicting interest or until he received a waiver. But Mr. Sachs's waivers provide an incomplete picture of his wealth and do not say when he sold his holdings in Meta, Amazon, and other countries. But what is clear, and this is what I was mentioning a moment ago, that Mr. Sachs, either directly or through Kraft Ventures, has retained 20 crypto and 449 AI-related investments, according to the Times analysis. Of the AI-related investments, 11 were designated in one waiver as, quote, AI interests. The other 438 were classified as software or hardware makers, even though they promote AI offerings or services on their website. For example, the waiver categorized Palantir as a, quote, software as a service, while the company's website says it provides AI-powered automation for every decision. The point being that this guy is the AI and crypto czar, and thus him having investments in companies who are working on AI and being able to work on regulation for AI can benefit him financially. 41 of the companies that he's invested in have AI in their names, such as Resemble.ai and Crew AI. And one of the waivers, the White House said many of the software companies do not currently use AI-related applications in their core business in any material way, but then they also added, quote, many of them are likely to at some point in the future. So they're acknowledging that, like, yeah, they might not be using AI now, but they might in the future. And I guess his investment in there could benefit in the future, even if it's not in the present moment. The AI action plan, which was a big part of the Trump administration and coming from David Sachs, promotes domestic production of autonomous drones and other AI inventions for the Pentagon. Mr. Sachs has stakes in defense tech startups such as Anduril, Firestorm Labs, and Swarm Aero that make drones and other products, according to his filings. And of course, Anduril is one of the many companies that is funded by Palmer Luckey, who has connections to Peter Thiel, Sachs and Peter Thiel. I mean, it goes on. And then Mr. Sachs also is involved in the promotion of the Genius Act, which is all about stable coins. And more people have realized that CBDCs are not the only danger, that stable coins can also end up being surveillance coins and lead to less freedom and control of your money. So that's David Sachs, right? That's who this guy is, this AI and cryptos are. And then just to show you real quick, they do have one of his copy of one of his waivers, which is like 30 something pages long. Both of those will be in the show notes. And David Sachs actually responded to this on Twitter, saying it's a hoax from the New York Times, which, again, I'm not defending the New York Times, but in this case, the journalism, the reporting seems to be accurate. 5 months ago, 5 New York Times reporters were dispatched to create a story about my supposed conflict of interest working as the AI and crypto czar. Through a series of fact checks, they revealed their accusations, which were debunked in detail. The accusations range from a fabricated dinner with the leading tech CEO to non-existent promises of access to the president to baseless claims of influencing defense contracts. He goes on through here. He accuses them of goal post shifting, and there's a 5-page letter if you want to read it. Unfortunately, or at least in my view, this is just, he's just kind of missing the point. He's not denying that he does have conflict of interest or that he does have stock and stake in companies that are involved in AI in any way. He's just kind of saying they allegedly made up some other things, and maybe they did. Maybe they looked for things that weren't there, and they decided to publish, but they decided to publish about the things they could actually prove. That's kind of journalism. You're investigating things. You might be looking for leads, look into areas, and they turn up not to be what you thought, and you let them go, and the story evolves and changes. He's saying it's a hoax factory. You can, decide who you want to believe. But let's go to one more story that is kind of similar about a different man in Trump's administration. This is an article called Family Affair, Commerce Secretary's Son Cashes in on AI Frenzy. This is about Howard Lutnick. how Howard Lutnick is helping push data center projects and his family's companies are profiting from them, specifically his son in Amarillo, Texas. His son's named Kyle Lutnick, the 29-year-old scion of his family's real estate business. He apparently went to Amarillo, Texas to look for a spot to build a future data center for Toby Neugebauer. I don't know. It looks like maybe German, a billionaire who is building one of the behemoth facilities that will power the next generation of AI. Mr. Lutnick, the younger one, his company has helped raise capital for the center, banking millions in fees and process. A month later, Kyle's father, Howard Lutnick, was photographed with the same men at the White House, near the White House, celebrating his partnership with a South Korean company on the same data center project. So the son is working with this billionaire to build a data center in Texas. Then shortly after that, the dad, in his position as Commerce Secretary, is meeting with this man at the White House. So it says here, the sequence of events, a son making money on a project his father is boosting as a federal official, has come up repeatedly since Trump tapped Howard Lutnick to head the Commerce Department. In that role, Lutnick has twisted the arms of American allies, dangling policy favors in exchange for investments in U.S. industrial projects. At times, these tactics have created opportunities for his family's clients to gain access to much-needed foreign capital. Now, here's the key right here. The job of Commerce Secretary has always been to promote American industry through deal making at home and abroad, and the position has traditionally been populated with titans of industry who were expected to bring a business sensibility to meetings filled with career government workers. But never in modern U.S. history has the office intersected so broadly and deeply with the financial interest of the Commerce Secretary's own family, according to interviews with ethics lawyers and attorneys and historians. That's Howard Lutnick right there at the White House. And the article goes on from there to describe this and further. That will be in the show notes. But if you've been following my work and The Last American Vagabond, you guys already knew this because I wrote this article. This one is from August. Big tech firms and AI firms are winning under Trump's second administration. We talk about the AI action plan and the Make Health Tech Great Again, where companies like Amazon, Anthropic, Apple, Google, OpenAI, and others are beginning to lay the foundation for a next generation digital health ecosystem where you'll all be wearing wearables, according to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And I talk about this, and I talk about the connections between the tech industry. And of course, we've talked about this since before the election even happened. I was telling you guys all the different people surrounding Trump that are connected to Peter Thiel and connected to the Technocrats. And then once Trump started naming his people, it became even more clear that people like David Sachs would be involved and that they would play a major role. Sachs is most well known for his early investment days in PayPal, serving as COO with Thiel as the CEO. He is considered a member of the so-called PayPal mafia. He was involved in the founding of Tesla, LinkedIn, Palantir, SpaceX, YouTube, and Yelp. And Thiel and Sachs, as I said, they go back to Stanford, where they wrote a book called The Diversity Myth, Multiculturalism, and Political Intolerance on Campus, where Peter Thiel and Sachs would later apologize for statements they made in the book about belittling the rape of women. And it is, in fact, at a fundraiser at Sachs's home in the Pacific Heights neighborhood in San Francisco in June 2024, where all these tech billionaires got together and they raised $12 million for Trump. And they told him to choose J.D. Vance. And Elon Musk also reportedly encouraged Trump to pick Vance. And a few weeks later, that's exactly what he did at the Republican National Convention. So you can just see how these ties between Peter Thiel, David Sachs, like the technocrats, the big technocrats who are trying to build the technocratic dystopia are the ones running Trump's administration. And many of these people have spoken at or been involved with the Bilderberg Group, the World Economic Forum, the Young Global Leaders, Zionists, technocrats, and you can go to my article, another one that I'll just pull up real quick, Meet the Peter Thiel Acolytes in Donald Trump's second administration. This is one where I go extensively covering these people, including David Sachs. And since we talked about Howard Lutnick, we might as well pull up about him. And just a couple of facts on Howard Lutnick, who's also continuing to enrich himself under Trump administration. The CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald investment firm. He's, of course, been pumping Bitcoin for a few years. He's part owner of Rumble. He is an investor in Strive Asset Management, co-founded by Vivek Ramaswamy. Peter Thiel, the Founders Fund, and J.D. Vance's Narya Capital have also contributed to that fund. Now, Lutnick is interesting because He was also a neighbor to Jeffrey Epstein in New York City, and he previously raised millions of dollars for Hillary Clinton in 2016. He spoke at the World Economic Forum as far back as 2016 and as recently as January 2023, and I'm sure he's going to be speaking again very soon. And one final coincidence, his companies had offices on the 101st to the 105th floors of the One World Trade Center in New York City. The firm lost 658 of its 960 employees due to the terrorist attack. But coincidentally, Howard Lutnick did not go to work that day and went with his wife to take his son to kindergarten. And he survived, of course. So just some interesting facts about him. You can find that in the Meet the Peter Thiel Acolytes in the Donald Trump administration. And one more final one. The Palantir World Order is another article, deep dive on all the people connected to Peter Thiel and David Sachs and these technocrats in the Trump administration. Welcome to the Palantir World Order. This one is a deep dive that literally goes through and lists all the different people, the Palantir, Peter Thiel connections, and they're extensive. I will put these articles in the show notes. But, back to my original question, is there any limits to wealth? Like, do people ever get rich and then decide, okay, that's enough. I'm at a point where I'm content and I'm happy. And, I don't need to try to take over the world and build a technocratic dystopia. I'm content with the money and not even having enough time in my life to ever spend it. I'll leave people alone and just live my life peacefully. I guess there's some of them out there. Maybe there's some quiet billionaires or multimillionaires who aren't trying to do harm to the planet. But it seems like a lot of them just seem to get off on trying to conquer everything. And I guess that's just power, right? Like maybe that's something to do with money and boredom even. You're just like, I got all this money, I got to do something with it. And maybe with that money, you kind of blind yourself and think, well, I'm smarter and better and richer than everybody. Maybe I can solve the world's problems. And who cares what they actually want? I will just use my money to accomplish these goals. And so you focus on making that happen. I don't know. Maybe that's where some people are at and that's where their mind's at. But it doesn't seem like there is a limit to the greed in this case because the technocrats keep getting richer under Donald Trump. And I don't know if we should expect anything different to come because there's a lot of technocrats in there and Trump doesn't seem to be, minding their presence at all. All right, guys, I want to tell you a little bit more about Civil, who are the sponsors of this show. We've been working together for the last couple months. Very grateful to everybody at Civil and to all of you in my audience who have gone and signed up at Civil, CIVL.com. There are so many different content on here. In fact, I'm going to go show you guys some in just a moment, but just want to mention a few more things. Of course, my documentary, Liberation 2030, it was available first on Civil. If you watched it there before anybody else, awesome. If you've been taking part in the 10-week opt-out challenge, great. You get access to all of that. You're going to be the first people to see my final episode of The Pyramid of Power, Chapter 17, Volume 2. You can also go to Civil itself and you can watch all kinds of content. Let me just go to the homepage here because I am logged in so I can kind of show you some of what's going on, some of the different documentaries. You got podcasts, you got this film festival, they got new movies, independent films that they've added here specifically made for Civil. There's different podcasts, as I mentioned. Here's the whole opt-out series, 10-week opt-out challenge that you can find here. The Infiltrators. Here's a show called The Conscious Resistance. Oh, you can watch all those episodes. That's kind of cool. So there's just so much content. This documentary, Imminent Threat, that's a really cool documentary. I encourage you to check that out. There's talks, and it's a wide range of documentaries that are available. A lot of it is, of course, more politically oriented, freedom-minded, which hopefully you're into and you might learn something. And there's just a wide range of things on here. You're not going to agree with everything, just like you don't agree with everything on Netflix or Amazon or Hulu or whatever. But I think that there's a lot of great content here that you can find really interesting, informative, educational. And Civil is truly dedicated to trying to elevate humanity, upgrade civilization, and promote human respect. And we are united in that goal. So go over to civl.com/TCR. You can find out more. And again, you can use the code TCR20 to get a 20% discount off an annual subscription. Okay, so there is a new story out now in the Washington Post for whatever it's worth, and I think it will more than likely be proven to be correct. It says that Pete Hegseth, Defense Secretary, his order on first Caribbean boat strike, officials say, was to kill them all. As two men clung to a stricken, burning ship targeted by SEAL Team 6, the Joint Special Operations Commander followed the Defense Secretary's order to leave no survivors. The longer the U.S. surveillance aircraft followed the boat, the more confident intelligence analysts watched from command centers became that the 11 people on board were ferrying drugs. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth gave a spoken directive, according to two people with direct knowledge of the operation. The order was to kill everybody, one of them said. A missile screamed off the Trinidad coast, striking the vessel and igniting a blaze from bow to stern. For minutes, commanders watched the boat burning on a live drone feed. As the smoke cleared, they got a jolt. Two survivors were clinging to the smoldering wreck. The Special Operations Commander overseeing the September 2nd attack, which was the first one from the Trump administration, ordered a second strike to comply with Hegseth's instructions, two people familiar with the matter said. The two men were blown apart in the water. Hegseth's order, which has not been previously reported, adds another dimension to the campaign against suspected drug traffickers. Some current and former U.S. officials and law of war experts have said that the Pentagon's lethal campaign, which has killed more than 80 people to date, is unlawful and may expose those people directly involved to further prosecution. The alleged traffickers pose no imminent threat of attack to the U.S., despite Trump trying to say so. And we are not in an armed conflict with them, these officials and experts say, because there is no legitimate war between the two sides. Killing any of the men in the boats amounts to murder, said Todd Huntley, a former military lawyer who advised Special Operations Forces for 7 years at the height of the U.S. counterterrorism campaign. Even if the U.S. were at war with the traffickers, in order to kill all the boat's occupants if they were no longer able to fight, would, quote, in essence be an order to show no quarter, which would be a war crime, said Huntley, who is now director of the National Security Law Program at Georgetown Law. This report is based on interviews with accounts from 7 people with knowledge of the September 2nd strike and the overall operation. So it's going to go on from there, but let's see what the Pentagon says. Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell declined to address questions about the details of the operation. The entire narrative is completely false, he said. Ongoing operations to dismantle narco-terrorism and to protect the homeland from deadly drugs have been a resounding success. So that's all to say is everything's great, and that's all a complete lie. The commander overseeing the operation from Fort Bragg in North Carolina, Admiral Frank M. Mitch Bradley, told people on the secure conference call that the survivors were still legitimate targets because they could theoretically call other traffickers to retrieve them and the cargo, according to two people. He ordered the second strike to fulfill Hegseth's directive that everyone must be killed. And then later on that day, of course, Trump released the redacted 29-second surveillance video. It does not include footage of the subsequent strike on the survivors. So, yeah, and this is ongoing. They continue. They've hit now 22 boats, up to 80 people. There's been no authorization from Congress. They keep claiming that these are drug boats. Many people have said that these little ferry boats are not really that used for drug transportation, and these boats aren't even in direct route to the United States. Of course, you could argue, as the Trump administration is doing so, that they will eventually make it there, and so they are, justified in killing them before they actually get there. I think it's all bullshit, and it's just trying to justify what they're doing there. Nevertheless, that's what the Trump administration is arguing, and we're going to have to see where it goes from here. But it's interesting that some people are calling these war crimes and saying that Hegseth should be charged. Of course, look, I have no misbeliefs or hopes that Hegseth is going to be charged with war crimes and something is going to happen. Yeah, don't hold your breath for that, my friends. It's not coming. But this is at least more bits of the story. Maybe this will lead to other people talking and coming out and saying, hey, you know what? This is accurate. They did order to kill everybody. And at the same time, unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of MAGA people who say you're just a weak liberal, Derrick, who cares about drug dealers and cartel members Trump is keeping everybody free. In fact, I had somebody, I got to read this comment to you guys. I had somebody pop up on my Telegram channel. For those who are on Telegram, come join my channel, search Derrick Broze's Daily News. And this guy, it was a post about Venezuela, and this guy just came in here and said some, screw all the Venezuelans. And he talks about simping for Trump. He's like, as long as Trump is cleaning up the world for globalism, drugs, and other anti-human forces, yes, I will keep simping harder for American imperialism and for the American Constitution, for freedom, dignity, prosperity, for God, family, and property ownership. And I'm just like, Trump doesn't give a shit about the Constitution. Nevertheless, these people don't. And in fact, Pete Hegseth, part of his whole thing is like this machismo, like the military has gotten weak and we need to bring it back to strength. So, yes, military of sergeants and drill sergeants, they can put their hands on you. They can yell in your face and scream at you because the military has gotten weak over the years. And so in their minds, this is showing strength. Hey, you know what? Who cares? Those people were drug dealers. Who cares if we didn't actually provide evidence? Bomb them. We don't need them to hang on the side for dear life in the boats because we don't believe in actually bringing people in and making them face their charges in a court of law and a court of justice as the United States is supposed to have. We don't believe in that. They're just going to die right there in the waters. That's the the way of Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump, unfortunately, and they see that as strength. They see that as something to be proud of. So I don't think we're going to get much sympathy or concern from the Trump crowd, unfortunately, but maybe this will lead to more information coming out. I hope it will, because I want some accountability, or at least for it to be on the record that these people are committing these kind of crimes. And to me, they're already violating the Constitution just by doing these bombings in the first place. Now, I want to talk about another story just briefly, just to remind you, like I said earlier, that both the parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, yes, there are some differences, but in a lot of ways they are the same, and it's mainly that they have no principles. This is an article from ProPublica coming from the Texas Tribune Partnership. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, back in my home state of Texas, long a defender of states' rights, embraces Trump's push to expand presidential power. Defending Texas sovereignty has been central to Abbott's political identity, yet he has helped Trump erode states' authority over elections, policing, and deploying of the National Guard. And this is something that I've talked about for a while as well, that I just don't understand how those who claim to be Republicans, conservatives, I mean, it's just a matter of not having principles. I already know the answer, but these people claim to be conservatives, small government, limited government, constitutionalists. And when it comes to their side violating those things, they don't care. It's just like, well, we got to do what we got to do, or the other side did it first, so we're going to do it better. And it's just a race to the bottom, race to tyranny. But as this article outlines here, just last year, Texas Governor Greg Abbott joined a bipartisan chorus of governors in denouncing Biden administration plan that said they would strip states of powers guaranteed them under federal law. The plan would have transferred Air National Guard units from 6 states to the U.S. Space Force, the newly created military branch, stoking concerns about federal overreach and the erosion of governors' controls over their own National Guard forces. Even though Texas wasn't affected by this, Abbott made his opposition unmistakable in an open letter to the president, where he called the plan an intolerable threat that would set a dangerous precedent. And he said, I strongly oppose any attempt to sideline governors when it comes to their respective National Guards. However, 1 year later, he helped Trump do that same thing. He said that he fully authorized the president's plan to send Texas National Guard members to Illinois and to Oregon to protect federal law enforcement personnel who are executing immigration laws. Those states' governors vigorously objected, saying that such an action was an unnecessary escalation that interfered with their own state sovereignty. So 1 year, Abbott's complaining about some moves that Biden was going to do. And of course, because it was Biden, taking National Guard members and making them part of the Space Force. He's like, no, don't do that. It's violating my sovereignty as a governor. Then this year, Trump says he wants to send military National Guard into Illinois and Oregon. And since those Democrat governors are not friendly to those policies, Trump says, well, we're going to take some National Guard members from Republican states, including Texas. And Abbott's like, here, take them all, whatever you need to do. I don't care about what those other state governors want. You can take my National Guard and send them over there. Abbott defended the deployment on Fox News. The president, he said, has the authority to mobilize Guard members to preserve public safety. President Trump and I have good, longstanding working relationship, and there's a substantive reason behind that. He said that him and the president were, quote, operating very closely aligned on ensuring that our country is going to be safe. He's the leader of the largest state led by Republicans and has emerged as one of Trump's most important allies when it comes to testing the limits of executive power. While governors often align with their party's presidents, Abbott's support for Trump's expansion of federal powers is a striking departure from his own historical and ardent defenses of state sovereignty. And constitutional experts say that this sets a risky example that may be difficult to reverse, including one Victoria Nurse, a professor at Georgetown University Law Center, said, what he's doing is short-term gains for his political positions and Texas's political positions, but not for Texas as a state moving forward. You might like this president, but you're not necessarily going to like what happens to Texas with the next one. And they go on to give different examples of this, but I think the point is already made. This guy is just another, as people like to say, rhino, not to say that Republican in name only, not to say that being a Republican in the first place is a good thing, but the Republicans, when they see people like him, they're like, oh, you're not a real Republican, you're not a real conservative. It's because those people, I think, haven't quite come to grips with recognizing that the Republicans and the Democrats are both tyrants, and neither of them give a shit about your liberties, about your freedoms, and they're not going to protect you from tyranny. They're going to participate in tyranny, guys. So sitting there and waiting for some Republican governor like Greg Abbott to come save you is just, it's silly. It's an exercise in futility, and it's not going to happen. These people have shown that they are not about freedom. And even Greg Abbott during COVID, he may have done some good things here and there over the years, but during COVID, he also was the one who instituted the statewide mask mandate. And I remember that going back to Texas from Mexico in like July, and it was like, as of July 1st at noon, masks are going to be required everywhere. And people complied, gyms, all sorts of businesses, they complied with his executive orders. There were some counties in Texas that basically said, like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to participate. And they didn't, and nobody forced it on them. At least Abbott didn't say, send in the troops then, or send in the police to go enforce this state executive order. But still, he's the one that implemented it on the state level. So this guy is not a conservative. He's not a constitutionalist, and he doesn't have principles. That's what it really comes down to, guys. And if you don't have principles, whatever your principles are, I mean, for me, the principles I care about are individual liberty, being rooted in bodily autonomy, self-ownership, non-aggression, these sorts of things. If you don't have your principles, then you're going to be wishy-washy. You're going to be all over the place. You're just like, I like freedom. Okay, well, what does that really mean? You need to define that for yourself. You need to get really deep understanding what that means. And then once you have your first principles, you reflect back to them, and you should make every decision you make a reflection of those principles. Because what's the point of having a principle up here? Hey, I have a principle, I believe in something. But then when it comes to your actual actions and your habits and your lifestyle and your relationships, you don't live them. It's just something that, it's just bullshit. So you can say, I'm a Republican and I believe in the constitutional limited government. Oh, except for when my guy wants to do something that's a violation of that. Or I'm a Democrat or I'm progressive and I believe in anti-war, social justice, this and that. Well, except for whenever my people do it, it's okay if they violate those things, because we just got to beat the other side. If you have that kind of mentality, which I think the vast majority of my audience doesn't, and somebody who comes across this who might be in there, hopefully you're getting what I'm saying. If you have that type of mentality, it's because you are stuck in this false left-right paradigm and in this party politics paradigm. This is not team sports, my friends. This is not just trying to get one over on the other guy. This is a fight for the future of humanity, and we need to rise above this false left-right paradigm and realize that both Democrats, Republicans, left, right, whatever country you're in, they work together. Even if they're not all meeting in a back room in agreement on every single issue, which I don't think they are, and even at the lowest level, the local level, the state level, and even maybe some on the federal level, they genuinely do oppose each other. For the most part, when it comes to Zionism, when it comes to war, when it comes to surveillance, when it comes to violating civil liberties, when it comes to supporting that revolving door I described earlier, that industry and back and forth with government, they all participate in it. And so they are not on our team. They are not on our side. And that's why I wanted to highlight that article, because it's just one more example of how so-called conservatives and Republicans and constitutionalists that claim to believe in limited government don't actually believe in it, if that means they are going to support Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has never been a Republican, never been a real conservative constitutionalist. This dude was a Democrat up until the first time he ran for office. But hopefully you guys are starting to see through that bullshit. All right, let me remind you guys one more time. If you want to support the Conscious Resistance, you want to support my work, or you want to give me a gift and yourself a gift for my birthday, go to theconsciousresistance.com, check out our shop, check out the shirts tab. We got 8 different designs: Liberate All Life, Revolution Without Healing is a Recipe for Disaster, You Are Our Creator, Exit and Build, No Masters, No Slaves, Holistic Anarchism, the Conscious Resistance logo, which I'm wearing right here. You are powerful, you are beautiful, you are free. All of those shirts are available at theconsciousresistance.com. We do ship all over the world. It's kind of expensive, but we will ship to you. $25 for the shirts. Some of them are I think they're mostly cotton. Some of them do have polyester in them. They are not organic. Unfortunately, we're having trouble finding organic cotton dealer in the US that's affordable. If you know one, let me know. We do have some shirts made in Mexico that are organic, but if you want to support me, go to theconsciousresistance.com, check out the shop tab, look at the shirts, look at the books, and support us today. Support me on my birthday. All right, the final story I want to show you guys here is this one reported from The Guardian. Mind-altering brain weapons no longer only science fiction, says researchers. UK academics say latest chemicals are wake-up call and urge global action to stop the weaponization of neuroscience. Wow, this sounds intense. It sounds like some MK Ultra stuff. Sophisticated and deadly brain weapons that can attack or alter human consciousness, perception, memory, or behavior are no longer the stuff of science fiction, two British academics argue. Michael Crowley and Malcolm Dando of Brantford University are about to publish a book, we'll open that up, that they say should be a wake-up call to the world. They traveled a couple of weekends ago to The Hague for a key meeting of states, arguing that the human mind is the new frontier in warfare and that there needs to be global action to prevent the weaponization of neuroscience. Crowley says, it does sound like science fiction. The danger is that it becomes science fact. The book, which is published by the Royal Society of Chemistry, explores how advances in neuroscience, pharmacology, and artificial intelligence are coming together to create a new threat. We're entering an era where the brain itself could become a battlefield. The tools to manipulate the central nervous system, to sedate, confuse, or even coerce are becoming more precise, more accessible, and more attractive to states. The book traces the fascinating, appalling history of state-sponsored research into central nervous system acting chemicals, including during the Cold War, where the US, Soviet Union, and China all actively sought to develop these types of weapons. And their purpose was to cause prolonged incapacitation to people, including loss of consciousness, sedation, hallucination, or incoherence, or paralysis and disorientation. Now, and they talk about Russia using this, but of course we know that other countries, including Japan and the US, have involved in all kinds of intense and disturbing experiments, MK Ultra, MK Delta. There's so many others that we probably don't even know the full story of. And there's also, I mean, they're talking about using chemicals here, but there's things like the voice-to-skull technology. There's people who believe strongly that there are already neural implants, graphene implants in us related to the COVID vaccines or to shedding. I've seen a lot of those claims. I'm not 100% sure about it. I know there's people's work out there who claim like it's already over, the stuff's already in us, and people have done blood tests and found some really interesting things. I don't deny those things. But whether you're talking about chemicals, you're talking about internal nanobots and graphene, or you're talking about voice-to-skull technology, like people, targeted individuals, who I do meet people who claim to be targeted individuals. This is the real stuff, the scary stuff, guys. It really does keep you up at night. Like, they have a lot of power to fuck with our heads in different ways and fuck with our bodies and our central nervous systems, and that is not good. I don't know what to do about it, right? Like, I don't even trust that the governments, if they did come up with a ban on this, that they would ban it, that they would actually not use it. I mean, could we actually trust them that they're never going to use these things just because they claim that? I don't buy it for a second, and you shouldn't either. The book, again, is called Preventing Weaponization of CNS Acting Chemicals, a Holistic Arms Control Analysis. Now, this is more of like an academic book. That's why it's written, produced by the Royal Society of Chemistry, and it is released as of last week. It just came out November 24th, 534 pages. To get digital access to this, it's 139 euros, or is that pounds? It might be pounds. And it's 139 to buy the hardback. So not too many of us are going to actually be buying it. Now, you could probably get a PDF of each of the individual chapters. There's chapters on neuroscience, the future of chemical and biological weapons, malign application of neuroscience. I mean, I'm sure there's some really interesting, important things to try to understand how this stuff works. It might be worth reading if anybody decides to buy it, or if you find it somewhere online for free, definitely send us some messages and we'll put a link out there. I would like to know more about this, and it's worth you guys knowing about it. So that is our last story for the night, guys. Just want to remind you again, if you want to invest in my work, theconsciousresistance.com/invest. Sign up for Buy Me a Coffee, sign up for Substack. You can send me some crypto, send me support, however you like. Go to theconsciousresistance.com, find something that's interesting to you, share it to your friends, share it in your group chats, share it to your email list, your social networks, your emails, whatever. And that could be your birthday gift to me. And I'd appreciate that very much. That's where you can find my website, my work at theconsciousresistance.com. Of course, we're available on all social media, guys. I don't really like promoting the social media because I want y'all to visit my website, but I know social media is the way people really use the internet these days. So if you are on social media, you can find The Conscious Resistance or Derrick Broze on Facebook. You can find my Telegram channel for Derrick Broze's Daily News and The Conscious Resistance on Telegram. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Substack. You can find me on Instagram at Mr. Derrick Broze. You can find me on TikTok at The Conscious Resistance. You can find me on BitChute. You can find me on Odyssey. And I think that's all the platforms. And of course, on all the podcasting networks, just search The Conscious Resistance, except for we're not on Spotify because we took our stuff off there. And yeah, that's all the places you can find me, guys. I really do appreciate your time, your attention tonight. Thanks for spending my birthday with me. And I think I'm going to go do something fun now that I've recorded this episode. And I will see you guys next week as we continue our dialogue about the big picture and what's going on. Last week, I asked you guys to let me know in the comments if you would like me to start doing a series of videos on the loneliness epidemic and why I believe some young men and young people in general, but particularly young men, are falling for false leaders like Andrew Tate and Nick Fuentes and some of these other bad influences. And so I got some positive responses. Again, I haven't started yet, but if you are interested, let me know in the comments. Would you like to hear my thoughts and my research on the reasons this is happening and maybe some solutions, some better advice for the young men like my young nephews who are 15 and under, who are starting to grow into young men and looking for influences besides their fathers out there in the world, and they are on social media. If you're interested in that, please let me know in the comments because I think I do want to dive into that. It'll be a special series focused just on that topic, and we'll start that real soon. So thank you all for being here today for the Conscious Resistance Live. Thank you, everybody at Civil, for continuing to support me. We are going to end with a music video, as we always do. This one is called Mission. It's from Soul Disciple, who is one of the conscious artists performing at the People's Reset. Again, thepeoplesreset.org. I would love to see my conscious resistance community at the People's Reset in what area. Let's get together. Let's have a meetup. Let's connect. Let's hang out. Tickets right now, $222. Special discount just for you guys. Conscious Resistors gets you 15% off tickets until December 15th. If you want to come hear me perform, hear me speak, connect with all of our community from around the world that we're building and get activated, then go to thepeoplesreset.org and get your tickets, and you can hear Soul Disciple. So check him out right now. This song is called Mission. It's all about being focused on your mission, whatever that means, and not getting discouraged from that. So I hope you enjoy it. Until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free, my friends. Peace.
I one-way ticket, sleep under some bridges, almost lost my vision, getting tossed by the waves of life, better watch for the ways it might take your attention, hone your defenses, go, what is the distance, you'll go for your mission, I one-way ticket, sleep under some bridges, almost lost my vision, getting tossed by the waves of life, better watch for the ways it might take your attention, hone your defenses, go, cause why would I waste my time on a screen, I could be living the life of my dreams, don't mean to kill the vibe, but I didn't believe, I wanted stability, now that I have it, it's unsettling, I need fulfillment, I need to find something beyond what's only for me, clocking it daily, but slowly I bleed, my conscience berates me, your soul ain't machine, it's a force you reckon with when that record hits right like rhetoric, I ain't heaven sent, but I got medicine for those who relate, yo, I got a question, what is the distance, you'll go for your mission, I one-way ticket, sleep under some bridges, almost lost my vision, getting tossed by the waves of life, better watch for the ways it might take your attention, hone your defenses, go, Now I'm at a crossroads, feeling like Paul the Apostle, lost in the dark of the unknown. This game is harder than Dark Souls, knocking on doors like y'all home. They are just scrolling on phones. You serving your medicine or you selling your soul, cause everything costs dough. I don't got a safety net, what if I just let it all go? Blowed up like a Zeppelin, float up to the heavens, but Lord knows I went through trauma, living in garages, had about $1. Didn't go to college, a pension wasn't my dream, I believed in my callings. Wasn't until reality hit me like boxes. Financial literacy, they never taught it to me. Only compliance, walking the line, do what you're told. I try to put the ROI, never saved my soul. Now I'm like, fuck 'em, I'ma pay my road, I'ma chase my goals, let's go. What is the distance? You'll go for your mission. Buy a one-way ticket, sleep under some bridges. Almost lost my vision, get tossed by the waves of life. Better watch for the ways it might take your attention, hone your defenses, go. What is the distance? You'll go for your mission. Buy a one-way ticket, sleep under some bridges. Almost lost my vision, get tossed by the waves of life. Better watch for the ways it might take your attention, hone your defenses, go.
Since 2012, the Conscious Resistance Network has been an independent media organization focused on empowering individuals through education, philosophy, health, and community organizing. We work to create a world where corporate and state power do not rule over the lives of free human beings. Our motto is leading by example and helping others in their pursuit of freedom. Visit theconsciousresistance.com to find our articles, documentaries, interviews, podcasts, books, and more. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.